Hi everyone, my name is Angela, and this is the start of a new reading vlog. It is Monday, August 5th, and I'm going to be seeing how much I can read in a week. So I will end this vlog next Monday and we'll see how many pages, how many hours of audiobooks, how many books I can complete. So let me tell you what I'm currently reading and where I'm at. Yesterday, I just barely started reading Disoriental. This is a translated literary fiction novel translated from the French by Tina Cover. And I believe this is going to be a multi-generational story about a family that immigrated to France from Iran. And currently I am on page 28. I am 23% into Ever After Always by Chloe Liese, which is the third book in the Bergman Brothers series. In this one, we're following Freya and Aiden, and they're having some trouble in their marriage. They've been married for 10 years, and they kind of don't know exactly how to put their finger on what's wrong, but they're trying to fix it, and they're both not in a great place. And then they learn that there's this big family vacation coming up to celebrate Freya's parents' wedding anniversary, and the whole family is going, and so they kind of have to fake being happy on this anniversary trip. Those are the only two books I'm reading right now. I do have There by Tommy Orange out from the library, and I've been meaning to read this for like many years, so this will probably be the next book that I pick up unless I just completely lose interest for some reason, which my brain tends to do. So hopefully I will be able to finish all of those books or even more. We're gonna see, but let's get started with the vlog. Your girl has not had the best day. It has been kind of a shitty day, but I have a package. So we're gonna open up this bad boy. I know that it is missing one book because the seller I bought from Monpango kindly messaged me and was like, hey, sorry, I forgot one. I'm sending another package. So thank you to her for actually following through. I have actually not gotten book mail in a really long time, like since January, because I haven't been buying books very often, and when I do, it's been physically. But I need the Heroes of Olympus series in my home. So this is the House of Hades, the Blood of Olympus, the Son of Neptune, and the Mark of Athena. Currently, here's my book haul. Definitely planning on doing a reread of this series, possibly very soon. I tried kind of doing it on audio and I really did not enjoy that experience. I actually owned all of these books in their original hardcovers, but I sold them to half-price books because what I used to do was, I would get books used, I would read them. A few years later, I'd sell them to get more used books. And it was a good system, but I do regret having sold this series because I think as an older teen, I didn't realize that I would want to go back and reread the series over and over again. In terms of a reading update, I don't remember what percentage I was at this morning, but right now I'm 43% of the way into this book. I feel like last night when I started reading this and this morning, my opinion was like 100% positive. Like I really liked it. It was really well written and I was really vibing. And now I'm a little bit like, is this a romance book? Is this a romance book? Because the characters are already married and they're having marital problems. And so all of their inner monologue is just them either being mad at each other or being mad at themselves. And neither of them have done anything like, irredeemable, like cheating or anything. So it takes you a little bit into the book to really figure out exactly why they're unhappy. Specifically, the wife, Freya, is the one who asked her husband to give her some space for a week, essentially like kicking him out for a week, which is like obviously a pretty, good indication that something's gone wrong in your marriage. And I don't know, it's really depressing. It's really depressing because you're just watching these two characters like struggle to communicate how they truly feel. And some people would be like, miscommunication trope, and I don't know if that's a miscommunication trope or not. She's definitely capturing like how difficult it is to truly be good at communicating, like without expecting the other person to like guess the subtext or intuit what you mean behind what you really said. Like to actually communicate very well is very hard, and these two people are obviously trying to learn how to do that, but it's depressing. It's making me sad. It makes me, as a married person, like it's not nice to read. I definitely thought that we'd be getting, you know, back into some happier times sooner in the book. Where we are right now, they've like just gotten to Hawaii, where they're going to be on this family vacation, so it might be a little bit more upbeat from here, but I'll let you know. I'll probably update you at the end of the night to tell you what all I read today, but hasn't been the best reading day so far. Good morning. It is Tuesday. Mittens. No. And I wanted to update you for what I ended up reading last night. So I got to 64% of Ever After Always, and I do plan on finishing this today. I think it's very easy to consume, so I should have a review for you tonight. And I only ended up reading 10 more pages of this, so I'm on page 38, and I would really like to sit down and try to get more into this tonight. The audiobook is on Hoopla, so what I've been doing is just listening while following along with my eyes. I'm not super used to reading litfic, so having the audiobook narration while I read is helpful, and then if it's not nice later, I can always just forego the audiobook. So let's hope I have a better brain for sitting down and reading today than I did yesterday. I did indeed finish Ever After Always, so I'm here to give my review. My final rating for this book is a 3-star, which is disappointing because the first book in the Bergman Brothers series, Only When It's Us, I think the titles are not my favorite. But the first book I gave 5 stars. It was on my top 10 favorite books of the year last year. And the second book I read earlier this year, I only gave it 3 stars. And honestly, if it wasn't for like me loving the author's previous work, I might have given it an even lower rating. I just have such mixed feelings about this book. I think the trope combination was never going to be my absolute favorite, just because it is like a married couple who's struggling, and that's not like that fun, obviously. And I don't think this book is really meant to be like super fun. It's more on the emotional side, and I do think that Chloe Liese writes really beautifully about emotions and mental illnesses and communication and neurodivergence. I think that all of that in her books is really successful, and I really appreciate it. Something else I love about this series is just the family dynamics and seeing how the brothers and sisters and their parents, like the Bergman parents, interact with each other, and all the funny little dynamics. And you know, obviously you get glimpses of characters that you saw in previous books that you've read, so that is fun. And I think that's probably why I will keep reading the series, even if it takes a while for me to get a 4 or 5 star book, because at the end of the day, they're easy reads and I do mostly enjoy them. This audiobook was about 10 hours and 18 minutes, so I think at the end I'm going to add up all the pages that I read and all the hours of audiobooks that I listened to. What I didn't like about this book was just that a lot of it felt really sad and just kind of them kind of repeating what they're feeling either in their heads or to each other over and over again. It got a little old. And also there was like a third act like fight like at the very end, which I thought was such a stupid choice because this whole book is literally them like making up after a bad patch. So like, why does there need to be a fight at the end? Like, that obviously they make up very quickly and like everything's happy in the end, but it was just like I was literally sitting there like rolling my eyes because I was like, really, like, did we really need this? So it's kind of a book that like might have gotten like a 3.5 if not for some of those moments at the end where I was just like, seriously. So that is my review of Ever After Always. I'm glad I read it. I mean, it was nice to have an easy audiobook to listen to while doing chores and such. So I am on page 72 of this book. It is 4 p.m. and I think I need to start another book that is more like fluffy and lighthearted, because my goal is going to be to finish this by the end of the video, by the end of the week, but I don't think that I'm going to be able to like sit down and read more than 50 pages at a time. It's just not the kind of book that I can do that with. So I think I'm going to grab my Kindle and try to find a like fun, cute little book that's more genre fiction and just pure entertainment, whereas this one has a bit more depth and meat to it. Okay, it's Wednesday morning, and let me just finish up telling you what I read last night. So I only got to page 72 of Disoriental. I'm struggling with this one a little bit just because it's not what I typically read. It's not really the book's fault, it's just me. But I'm going to try to push through because I do think I will end up appreciating it. And then instead of starting a book on my Kindle, I decided I really wanted to read something on my TBR. Lately I haven't been able to focus on books that aren't on my physical TBR as well, just because I really want to accomplish my physical TBR goals this year, and it just feels good to mark something off the list after I finish it. So I decided to start The Dragon Republic, which is the second book in the Poppy War series. I only got to page 26, but I did have to spend some time looking through the first book just to refamiliarize myself with some of the side characters. Obviously this is a sequel, so I won't be able to share too much about what's actually happening. I'll just share like my reactions to it. But so far I'm feeling good. This book has a really high rating on Goodreads, so I'm hoping that I'm gonna really enjoy it. And I don't know, I really hope that it keeps me engaged because I just kind of want to get lost in a fantasy world. So I will update you later on. Okay, it's 11 p.m. so I'm probably done reading, so I feel able to give you my final page count for the day. I got to page 96 in Disoriental. I did listen to the audiobook a bit today. Actually, that's pretty much all I did with this book today, is listen to it, and I don't really like it. I feel really bad because it's a translation, and you know, I studied translation in school. I really wanted to like this because it's, you know, translated fiction, written by a woman, translated by a woman. I'm not liking it. I'm kind of determined to finish it just because this is a book that I own and it's on my 24 for 24 and, you know, all of that. But if I'm being honest, I'm not really enjoying it, and I don't feel like I'm getting much out of it. I feel like this assumes that I have an in-depth knowledge of a lot of history that happened in the 60s and 70s, and I don't, and I'm just like, they're just like name dropping all these people, and I'm like, am I supposed to know who the fuck that is? So it's very humbling. So maybe if you are very knowledgeable about world leaders and people who were in power in the 60s and 70s across the whole world and things like that, then it would be easier to follow. I mean, that's not my only qualm with the book. It's just not doing it for me. And then a book that is more in tune with what I actually really enjoy reading is The Dragon Republic. I don't remember where I was this morning, but right now I'm on page 119. I read the first 7 chapters, and I fear that there are not going to be real dragons in this because one of the human characters is called the Dragon Warlord. Like, all of the provinces in this fictional country that's based off of China are named after animals, like the rat province and the hare province, whatever. And so I fear that it's just referring to him. And right now, it's very much like pirate vibes. Like, they're on ships and they're like sailing, and it's pretty fun. It's a very different vibe than the first book, and I'm very much enjoying the like naval feel to it. I like it. So on Thursday the 8th, I read to page 158 in The Dragon Republic, and I read to page 138 in Disoriental. If I had to predict the ratings for these books right now, I would say this is probably going to be a 4.5 stars, and this is going to be a 2-star. And I feel really guilty about not liking this because it has a really high rating on Goodreads, and I feel like such a loser for not liking it, but I really don't like it. I can see how someone else who reads this type of book more often would like it, but for me, I'm just kind of bored to tears. But I'm about to go on a walk. I'm gonna try really hard to read this and actually figure out what's going on, because right now it's not going well. It's Friday night and we're gonna go see the new Deadpool movie at the drive-in, so I'm super excited for that. And it's also only 70 degrees right now, and it's gonna get down to like 65, so I get to wear an actual sweatshirt, and that feels amazing. Hello. If I'm being honest, it is Saturday. I do not know how much I read yesterday, but it is like 8:30 at night, and I did read today, so let me tell you where I'm at. So I'm on page 310 of The Poppy War, of The Dragon Republic, and this book is about 650 pages long, so I'm a little under halfway. I am still enjoying this. I'm just finding it really difficult to sit down and physically read a book for hours and hours and hours and stay engaged, which I feel like is a pretty normal thing, but like for me, it's like, since I've been able to do that sometimes in life, I just like really want to be able to do that all the time, and that's just like not how it works for me. And then with Disoriental, I am 59% of the way through the audiobook. I'm not really reading this physically very often. I'm still not enjoying this. I'm still pushing through. I would probably DNF this if I didn't own this, and also if this wasn't on my 24 for 24 list, and also if it wasn't Women in Translation Month. So yeah, this is making me feel like a bad reader. Because I feel like there are definitely people who really get this, and it's not me. We have 2 more full days of reading. This vlog will end at the end of Monday, so we're gonna see if I can finish one or both of these books before the end of the vlog. That would be really great, but I don't know. Sundays are the days when I usually do a lot of my cleaning, which does mean a lot of audiobook time for this book. However, I don't really like listening to the audiobook for The Dragon Republic, so that one might not be finished by the end of this vlog, but that's okay. It is Sunday around 6 p.m. I finished Disoriental about 3 hours ago, around 3 p.m. And my final rating is going to be a 2.5. I did end up liking the end a lot more than like the middle portion of the book because we spent more time with Kimia in her adulthood in Paris, and most of the book I feel like was more about her as a child and then her other family members in moments where she wasn't there. She just kind of like heard about what happened. And to me, I felt like the book was strongest when we were learning about Kimia's adulthood. And I think that just the reason that I didn't really like this book is because that the story was told in kind of this meandering way that just wasn't for me. I think the essential parts of the story told in a different way would have really worked for me, but the way that it was told just left me really disconnected from the characters. A lot of it was really boring. A lot of it was also just like info dumping history, or not even info dumping sometimes. It was just like name dropping these world leaders from like the 60s and 70s that I just don't know. I wasn't alive at that time, and I don't have an encyclopedic knowledge of, you know, all of these world leaders and players in history from the 60s and 70s. So, you know, it's just like, okay, you said all these words, and what did that mean to me? Very little. So I think it's really a me problem. I think that from a like craft level, this author is clearly very talented, and the translator is clearly very talented, and you know, the author wanted to tell this story in a particular way that doesn't necessarily align with like a typical historical fiction multi-generational novel, and that's fine. It just didn't completely work for me. The last thing I'll say is that in the like summary in the flap of the book, it says that our main character is a queer punk rock aficionado or something like that. Yeah, it literally says queer punk rock aficionado and storyteller extraordinaire. And I didn't get to any discussions of queerness or punk rock stuff until like today when I was reading, until about like, I don't know, 70 or 80% of the book, or even further. And I just feel like that was kind of a weird choice to make. I wish that we had had more time with, I don't know, I feel like it was just, we didn't really get to know Kimia until the end of the book, just because this was a very like non-linear story of like her family and her own life and like little glimpses of the present. And I just the chronology of this book just did not make sense to me. It felt very random, and we didn't really get to know her deeply until the end. And then it's like, I'm enjoying this, and then it was over, and I'm like, well, why didn't you put that at the beginning? So 2.5 stars, but I wouldn't disrecommend this. I would recommend this if you want to read translated fiction and literary fiction. Give it a try. I also rearranged my main bookshelves a little bit, so from the TBR jar, like over to the left and then the very top shelf are TBR books. And then I added a bunch of books that were on a different shelf that I have read, so that this bookshelf is a bit more full of stories that I've actually consumed. So this is what it looks like now. And then this is what this bookshelf looks like now. So this one isn't really organized in any particular way, but I'm just going to keep adding books that I read the rest of this year to the shelf, and then maybe reorganize again at the end of the year. So by the end of Sunday, I got to page 356 of The Dragon Republic, And I started a new audiobook. I only listened to the first like 35 minutes of it while I was cooking, but I started Heartstone by L. Catherine White. And this is a book that I got inspired to read by Riley Marie's channel. And she basically described it as it's a Pride and Prejudice retelling, but in a world where there are dragon riders. Right now we're at like a manor house in this fictional country that I think is supposed to be England. And there are these like cute little like hobgoblins in the garden, and that's really cute. But there also seem to be these monsters that are like plaguing the area and killing people, and they need dragon riders to come and slay these monsters. But apparently dragon riders aren't necessarily like the most altruistic people. Like, they require a quite hefty payment to come, and I think the dragon riders are almost like the nobility in society, and so they're very much like the top of society, and they don't come for free. And right now I think the Mr. Darcy character has just arrived at this manor, and he is one of the dragon riders. And our main character, Eliza, her family seems to live at this manor, but they're not like the owners of the manor. I think her father like works for the lord of the manor. So that's all I know so far, but yeah, the creatures so far are really fun. I'm here to wrap up my reading for Monday and wrap up the vlog. So I read to 1 hour and 20 minutes in Heartstone. So I listened to a total of about 11 and a half hours of audiobook over this week, which is great. That's not counting Disoriental, because I just added up the page count for Disoriental. So it is a bit more than that in terms of audiobook, but I didn't keep track of like how many pages I read physically in Disoriental and listened. You get it. And I did end up finishing The Dragon Republic. I was really determined to finish this yesterday, and so I literally read like 300 pages of this yesterday, which is not usually how much I read in a day. But this was so good, and the story went in some unexpected directions, and I really appreciate that about R.L. Kuang. This is military fantasy, and so there is a lot about war and preparing for war and being at war. And I really appreciated that the story took some different turns, and we weren't necessarily only focused on the war. And there were some interesting, I mean, God, there's so much that happened in this book that was very tense, and I was concerned as fuck for these characters, and I was very entertained and engaged. And I do think that this is better than the first novel. I'm giving this 4.5 stars. I gave the first one 4 stars. I'm really happy that I read this. I feel inspired to go back through the Poppy War and underline some things, some details that maybe I missed or didn't remember, just so going into the third book I really have all the information I need to see how she brings all the pieces of this world together. But yeah, this is really dark. First one is also really dark, so I'm glad that I have a happier audiobook that I'm listening to. So in terms of page count, I read about 993 pages over the course of the week, and that feels like more than usual, so that's really great. Thank you so much for watching this little vlog of mine. Subscribe if you want to see more bookish content from me, and I hope you have a lovely week.